It's working. All right. Well, it seems a little weird that it says mute instead of power.
Yeah.
There we go. All right. Good morning, everybody. How's everybody doing? Okay, so we're going to talk about. I'm going to do a 5 to 6 week series. I think it's 6 weeks on First Kings. So we're going to specifically be doing from chapter 1 through 11. So we're going to be talking about Solomon, the story of Solomon. I grew up as a kid. You know, what's the first thing anybody thinks of when they think of Solomon? David's son. Oh, do you hear his wives? Yeah. Wisdom was another thing. I thought Solomon was this perfect guy who was extremely wise. Find out when you read the actual text, there's a lot going on. Yes. Yes. And when we dig into the actual text, we're going to really see some of the mistakes that he made and the disobedience that has future consequences down the road for the people of Israel. So today what we're going to do, we're not actually even going to get into 1 Kings today. What I'm going to use this week to do is provide an introduction to 1 Kings. So if we're going to dig into the actual text, we need to find out what's actually going on. We need to find out the setting and what's been happening leading up to 1 Kings. So anybody know what the book is that comes before 1 Kings chronologically? What's happening before that? Samuel, yeah, Samuel is a book, and then before that we have Judges, too. So what's going on in Judges? Who are the judges? I know, it's way too early, right? Yes, they're God's appointed leaders. They're not kings. They're the ones who communicate with God for the people. So there's a specific theme that happens throughout Judges over and over and over and over again. Does anybody know what that theme is? It's a pattern. Yeah, Mark.
The Israelites will sin, have a problem.
Yep.
The judge will be raised up to correct them where they
Exactly. Yes, Israel sins. They denounce God. God hands them to their enemies, so they then become oppressed. Israel then cries out, "Lord, please save us," and He sends a judge to deliver them. So this is it repeats itself over and over again in Judges. So this is leading up to the people eventually wanting a king. So what's causing this? There's chaos. There's infighting in between the tribes. So we have the Israelites are made up of how many tribes? 12 tribes. We have 12 tribes. They're fighting each other. There's a civil war going on between the Benjamites, which are one of the tribes, and all the other tribes. So all of this kind of chaos is setting the tone for 1 Kings. So the Israelites are spiraling out of control. Just to go through the book of Judges real quick, chapters 3 through 5, we have Othniel, Ehud, and Deborah. Things are going okay once these judges. They're pretty good judges. Anybody remember Ehud? He's a left-handed warrior. Stabs the guy in the stomach and it swallows his sword. That's a crazy story. Go back and read that. Then chapters 6 through 9, we have Gideon. Not so great. Things aren't going that great. Then we have Jephthah, who is really bad. If you want to be depressed, go read chapter 10 through 12. Then chapters 13 through 16, we have Samson, who things are getting even worse. A very flawed man. A man who had plenty of gifts, but didn't always use it to glorify God. Then finally, in chapters 17 through 18, we have Micah. Micah is not the same that the book is named after. There's a prophet Micah. This is a very different Micah. I like to think of this guy as, to bring it to modern day terms, this guy's kind of like a televangelist who, ripped churches off and then got exposed, and because he's building a private temple to himself, and he creates a false priesthood. So things are going really bad. They're not great. There's wars, and then now all of a sudden we have a judge who's building a temple for himself. So this causes in chapter 19 through 21 of Judges, this causes to repeat 4 times in those chapters. Israel did not have a king, and everyone did what was right in their own eyes. So this kind of sets the stage for why Israel would start to maybe want a king. Why do we think they wanted a king? Go ahead. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Every single nation that was either their enemy or their rivals, they had a king. They had a king that was their own. So we're going to get into, if you want to turn with me to 1 Samuel 8, chapter 8. We're going to do 1 through 21. We'll get into them asking. So we have Samuel. Who is Samuel? Yeah, a lot of people consider him to almost be like a 13th judge too. So he is the people. He represents the people of Israel. He's very, very old at this time. But I'll go ahead and get started into chapter 8, and it can kind of discuss from there. When Samuel became old, he made his sons judges over Israel. The name of his firstborn son was Joel, and the name of his second, Abijah. They were judges in Beersheba, yet his sons did not follow his ways, but turned aside after gain. They took bribes and perverted justice. So this is a common theme too. We see godly men, and they raise their kids. They don't necessarily come out godly themselves. So this is a common theme in this Old Testament. Like, it just seems to be over and over again. Then all the elders of Israel gathered together and came to Samuel at Ramah and said to him, "You are old, and your sons do not follow your ways. Appoint for us then a king to govern us like other nations." But the thing displeased Samuel when they said, "Give us a king to govern us." Samuel prayed to the Lord, and the Lord said to Samuel, Listen to the voice of the people and all they say to you. For they have not rejected you, but they have rejected me from being king over them. Just as they have done to me, from the day I brought them up out of Egypt to this day, forsaking me and serving other gods, so also they are doing to you. Now then, listen to their voice. Only you shall solemnly warn them and show them the ways of the king who shall reign over them. So Samuel reported all the words of the Lord of the people who were asking for a king. He said, "These will be the ways of the king who will reign over you. He will take your sons and appoint them to his chariot and to be his horsemen and to run before his chariots. And he will appoint for himself commanders of thousands and commanders of fifties, and some to plow his ground and reap his harvest, and to make his implements of war, and your daughters to be perfumers and cooks and bakers." This is pretty interesting to be reading this. I know. It was. Yeah. It did turn off, or is it still working? Okay. It's pretty interesting to read this under the context of, our modern day. And there's been kings. This country was built on escaping kings, so I think it's very interesting to read it under that context. He will take your daughters to be perfumers and cooks and bakers. He will take the best of your fields and vineyards and olive orchards and give them to his courtiers. He will take 1/10 of your grain and of your vineyards and give it to his officers and his servants. He will take your male and female slaves and the best of your cattle and donkeys and put them to his work. He will take 1/10 of your flocks, and you shall be his slaves. And that day you will cry out because of your king, whom you have chosen for yourself, but the Lord will not answer you on that day. All right, so clearly God's going to just say no, right? I mean, they're asking for a king. Samuel's telling them, this isn't my idea. They're asking for a king. I told them it's a bad idea. But the people refused to listen to the voice of Samuel. He's trying to reason with them. They said, "No, but we are determined to have a king over us, so that we also may be like other nations, and that our king may govern us and go out before us and fight our battles." When Samuel had heard all the words of the people, he repeated them in the ears of the Lord. And the Lord said to Samuel, "Listen to their voice and set a king over them." Samuel then said to the people of Israel, "Each of you return home." So God says, go ahead, have a king. We've got these perfect tables set up. I think what I want to do is have us discuss at your table. If you don't have enough people at your table, you can join another table. I want us to discuss at the table for about 5 minutes. Why do you think God granted them to have a king? I mean, he's warned in other scriptures, and we're going to get into that, how he's warned against having a king. Samuel said, "No, you don't want a king." Why do you think, discuss at your table, why do you think he allowed them to have a king? So we're going to take about 5 minutes. All right. We're gonna wrap up our discussion. There's a couple more opportunities. We're gonna discuss some more. But what are some? I want just a show of hands from the table, just to kind of represent what you guys talked about. Why do we think God gave them the king?
Like we are today, we are create God for stuff, not in His plan, but we keep harping on His heart, create Him for us. Okay? So He still turned it over to us just to show His glory in the end. That wasn't His plan. It wasn't for us.
Yeah.
But as humans, we always ask
Yeah, that's very true. Yeah. 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 Yeah, I love that. Yeah, and I think there's a sense of, like, I get a sense of envy from the Israelites too. They see other nations, they have these kings that fight their wars for them. And I think that's true. So I think that's a great answer. Who else? What else do we have? Yeah. Yeah. Go right ahead. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. You had something?
You're hardwired. Hard hit.
Yeah.
And there isn't anybody in this room that doesn't have scars from mess ups that we didn't.
Absolutely. Yeah. We've made, I mean, we're humans, we make a whole lot of mistakes. We have scars from it. And so the Israelites did what they basically Samuel warned them exactly what's going to happen when a king's going to take over. He told them this is what's going to happen, and they still said, "Yeah, deal, we'll take it." So I want us to get into, because God is all knowing, and this is just his way of showing that he's all knowing. 200 years before, when Deuteronomy was written, God anticipates Israel wanting a king. So we're going to go into that. Deuteronomy chapter 17 is where we're going to. So if you could turn with me to Deuteronomy 17. So it's chapter 17, but we're going to start in verse 14. 17:14. Might not often go into Deuteronomy, but we're doing it today. So. All right. When you come into the land that the Lord your God is giving you, so he's already given them the land, and you have taken possession of it and settled in it, and you say, I will set a king over me, like all nations that are around me, you may indeed set over you a king, whom the Lord your God will choose. One of your own community you may set as your king over you. You are not permitted to put a foreigner over you, who is not of your own community. Even so, he must not acquire many horses for himself, was foreshadowing, or return the people of Egypt in order to acquire those horses, since the Lord has said to you, you must never return that way again. You think they listen. And he must not acquire many wives for himself, or else his heart will turn away. Also silver and gold, and he must acquire in great quantity for himself. When we think about Solomon, this was like his thing. When he was taken he has taken the throne of his kingdom, he shall have a copy of this law written for him in the presence of the Levitical priest. It shall remain with him, and he shall read it in all the days of his life, so that may he learn to fear the Lord his God, diligently observing all the words this law and these statutes, neither exalting himself above other members of the community, nor turning aside from the commandment, either to the right or to the left, so that he and his descendants may reign long over the kingdom of Israel. So we see that warning right away. So God said, even in Deuteronomy, he does say you can have a king, but these are my rules. I have a couple of rules in order to have a king, and it's very tough for Solomon to follow those rules, and we'll get into that when we actually get into Solomon. I want us to start with another discussion question. This one's a little bit more of a hypothetical so we can kind of understand and apply it to modern day. I want at your tables, you got to have, you set aside 3 different commandments or rules that you would choose for an ideal world leader. So this is a big deal. So God's got his criteria about horses from foreign lands. I want you to create your world leader and say these 3 things. In order to have a great world leader, these are our main rules. So get with your groups and get it down, and I'd love to hear you guys share. Yeah, it can be today's world, not even specifically with like where we live, but like what characteristics make a good world leader. Yes. Yes. What what rules would you have? Like would they they have to act a certain way, they have to be foreign born. Yes. Now, yes. Less on the king side and more on a world leader today.
A good back, a strong background of background of education and honesty for others. Yeah, I was. I got strong calm and a good open mind.
I always forget the microphone goes idle, so it turns off. Like if I'm not talking into it, it'll turn off. So I gotta make sure I press the button twice. So that's what was happening earlier. It was turning off. I didn't think about it.
Must be a creature
Yeah. I think it's supposed to save power, like because it just turns off.
Yeah.
So if you're not using it, all right. There we go. Ooh. We're good. Okay, so, what were some of the rules that we had for to make a great world leader?
Well, our group, three things. One is a great, a good background in education.
Yeah.
Second, to be a good speaker
Mm-hmm.
and be open-minded.
Okay. So, good background in education, a good speaker, and open-minded. Okay. Yeah. Anybody else? Go ahead. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Very good. Very good. Putting the people's needs above their own. Okay, Mike. Okay. Mm-hmm. Yeah. 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 He's doing it, yeah. I mean, either he's just not paying attention to whoever's reading him the law in the morning, or he just decided to not even do it, right? Because he would be confronted every single day on what he's doing if the law was actually being read.
So then the next thing he said is it would be a king that rules over the people fairly, and that there was law and order. That the law and the order.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, great. Anybody else? Go ahead.
He started down this whole path. Godly, godly, and started to find what that looked like. The very last conversation that we had was kind of laid this out that what a biblical leader looks like. Eldership,
Mm-hmm.
those qualifications.
Yeah.
That focus on God, that focus on the people, that focus on bringing glory, caring for.
Yeah, absolutely. What do those men's fruit look like? I love that. Yeah. Go ahead.
In the standard the king was to write a copy of the law for himself
Oh, wow.
and
Yeah.
read it every day.
Yeah.
That's grounding.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So, as we move into, I kind of wanted to get you guys an idea of what God has in mind for a king and what the characteristics. I mean, he says all the warnings that people still say, no, we want a king. So, to kind of go through the kings, I want to spend the last 15 minutes what we have kind of setting the scene for next week when we actually go into 1 Kings 1. And we actually start our textual study. So the people decide they want a king. Who ends up being the first king? Saul. So Saul is the king. Originally, God says all the way back in Genesis 12, he mentions, we're going to give you a promised land. They've already done that. And we're going to make a royal dynasty out of you, the Israelites. So it's looking like Saul's name's going to be made great. He becomes the king, and God says, I'm going to make a great nation out of you. And then what happens, he's very disobedient to the Lord and unrepentant of his disobedience. And so God says, you know what? I don't want you to be my name. I'm not going to make a great name out of you. So he gives the kingdom to David. So Saul's main job, though, as a king, you have all this chaos going on in Judges right before this. The tribes are fighting with each other. His main purpose is to unite the tribes. And he actually does a very good job at that. By the end of Saul's kingdom, when he reigns for 40 years, the tribes are back to being united again. They're communicating again. And that's when David takes over. Now, David is the next king. We know all about his flaws. He was very gifted, but he was a incredible warrior and conqueror. So God makes a covenant with him. Because of your faith, I'm going to make your name great. Yeah, I'm going to start a royal dynasty with him. And what ends up happening with David, he does make David's name great, to the point of who comes from David's name? Jesus. Yeah, they call Jesus the son of David. So he does make. Mike, you look like you had your hand up.
Yeah, just a technicality. Actually,
Oh yeah.
actually, the second.
Yeah. Oh yeah. 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 You're right. So David, they make his name great. He starts a royal dynasty. They are one truly holy united kingdom. So this lineage progresses all the way down to Jesus eventually. So then David has a son, which we'll get into next week, how Solomon comes to power. But Solomon becomes the builder, and we're going to get into every chapter of how he becomes the build, what his priorities are, what he decides to do. He has some good. He's a very wise man, and we'll get into things he does right. But every single one of these kings has their downfall. And to eventually, we get to where, and this is where I like where this kind of provides like a prequel to what Rigel has been talking about in the book of Daniel. What's happening in the book of Daniel? They're in Babylonian captivity. These kings, all the things that they do are the consequences of leading up to that. But what I want you guys to, when we read through this, as we go into next week, really focus on, through the lens of these were gifted kings, right? David was a great warrior, was a songwriter, was a very gifted person, but there was so much going on as actual patriarchy, as a patriarch of his family, even. He was not the best dad. He didn't always follow the Lord. And so look at it from the lens of, we are given gifts. Every single one of us are given our gifts. What are we going to do with it? Are we going to behave like David and Solomon do and not use our gifts to glorify God? Or are we going to do everything we can to glorify God? So I want you guys to look at that with that scripture when we're reading through the scripture from that gaze. So any other thoughts as we close today on this actual section? Go ahead.
I think part of that section in Deuteronomy is also foreshadowing our future.
Yeah.
Because I think the message for them that was maybe too subtle was, you want a king, you need to say, and today, we're in the same situation. Our kings, our people, our kings are wealth or success or whatever we're chasing. So when you think about king basketball court or
Yeah.
king soccer for the kids or king relationships, what we really need is a savior. And all through this section, we keep forgetting that.
Yes.
Forgotten that 2,000 years later, because now we just chase kings and
Yeah. Yeah, and I think the Israelites kind of were thinking that the king was just going to fix all of their problems. Yeah, I'll get a different routine, and that's going to fix everything. But yeah, or if I just start working out, that's going to fix everything. So, I think that's a great point. And we look into 1 Kings, and we're going to start chapter 1 next week and go into how Solomon becomes king and what leads up to that. And David's at the very beginning of 1 Kings. He's a very old man, so we're going to see some of the flaws, that the mistakes David makes that leads to some of the strife within the Israelites. So thanks for your participation today. I'm excited to go into chapter 1 of 1 Kings with you next week.